This is the full in-depth review of the brand new Callaway Rogue Pro irons. We've got the 4, 7 and pitching wedge to test in this review. I'm going to test Callaway's claims about them feeling softer, feeling better, and apparently still hitting the ball a long way with the technologies. I'm going to test it on GC Quad with Pro V1s and take these golf clubs out on the golf course to give you the full information. I'm going to give you my opinions, my thoughts, I'm going to answer your questions, I'm going to finalise this with my full conclusion of the Callaway Rogue Pro irons. Okay, so the Callaway Rogue Pro irons. Callaway claim these are long, they're forgiving, they're giving everything that the good player kind of requires, but in a more kind of player profile shape. The technology that's packed into these is the 360 face cup technology, which we have seen in Callaway irons for quite a few years now. They've got this new urethane microspheres, which is a technology that sits behind the face, which is enhancing the sound and the feel of these irons. We'll see if that's the case. They've also got tungsten weighting more towards the toe, and they also feature a variable face thickness, which is giving you more ball speed on off-centered hits. We're going to see if that's the case in this review. I'm going to test it on GC Quad and Pro V1s, and like I said, I've taken it out on the golf course and testing it in a real game situation as well. So let's dive through the data first, and these are all the shots that I hit from GC Quad in here at the Quest Golf Academy. These irons are strong, and for a pro iron, so effectively for the better player, the lofts are pretty strong on these. So this 7 iron, the Rogue Pro, is 31 degrees. Not as strong as the standard Rogue, and definitely not as strong as the Rogue X, which I've still not tested just yet. But these are 31 degrees. Now, on a side note, the close-ups you'll see on video, unfortunately, these clubs weren't sent to me brand new, which is a shame because the close-ups aren't perfect. But the performance, I'm not going to see that much of a difference. It's just that they were already tried before. Hopefully I can get some new ones from Callaway moving forward. Let's have a look at the 7 iron data first. So, hit loads of shots with the Rogue Pro. I was carrying it 180 yards through the air, which sits about right with the 31 degrees of loft. Maybe a little bit further, but good numbers. Spin for a pro iron was low. This was down at 5,000. I wasn't expecting that from the Rogue Pro. I was hoping for a little bit more spin action, but I wasn't particularly getting that. But what it lacked in spin, it gained in height and descent angles. So out on the golf course, I might see this club stop, but in the academy, through the numbers, I wasn't massively impressed with the spin numbers. I hit some great shots. I hit some not necky shots, but I was kind of a little bit heel side of centre and still saw good performance across the board. So moving into the Rogue Pro 4 iron, I actually hit this really nicely. 210 on the carry. This was 21.5 degrees of loft. Just a couple of shots again, just catching the neck, and shot number 2 was a necky shot. I got bad distance, it was a terrible strike, but that's more down to me than the club. It just doesn't offer loads of protection on off-centered hits, but let's be honest, it's a 4 iron, so I'm not expecting loads either. Spin rate low at 3,100. Peak height was only 25 yards up in the air, and the descent angle was 36. I can't imagine that stopping into a par 5 at all. That's just going to come out flat, and if it lands on the green, that is not going to stop. See if that actually takes place out on the golf course. And then the pitching wedge, I actually really like the profile and the look of the pitching wedge as well, as I have done with a lot of the clubs, the 7, the 4 and the pitching wedge. I've actually really liked the look of these. They look similar to Callaway irons that they've made in the past. And you know, some of the students that I coach and some of the guys that I've shown these clubs to, they say they just look a little bit cheap at the back. And for, you know, £850 or nearly $1,000, they shouldn't particularly look cheap at the back. And they actually do. I can understand why some people would say that. They don't look like the brilliant finish that, like, let's say an Epic iron looks like. But the Epic iron is double the price of these. So I found that numbers inside on the GC Quad were okay. They were hitting the criteria. I hit some bad shots, got punished, again expected to do so. I didn't feel like I was getting loads of help, and could I tell any of these urethane microspheres what they were doing? Absolutely no. I couldn't tell what they were doing. The sound was nice, but it wasn't massively, I wasn't convinced that the sound was that amazing. They're not forged, so they're not going to get a super soft feel. They were long, but expected to be long because the lofts are strong. The thing that I feared about was the low spin, and certainly for a pro iron, that spin was on the dangerously low side. But it'll be interesting to see how that fares out on the golf course when I'm hitting it into real greens and getting the proper flight, and that's exactly what I did when I put them in the bag to test down the course. Okay, so I took them out onto West Lancs and I started them on the 10th hole. I hit 2 4-irons down 10, one that I absolutely crushed in the middle and one that I didn't quite catch. The one that I didn't quite catch was noticeably shorter than the one that I hit well, so I expected to do so. Good flights, I really liked the hits, and again the sound started to potentially win me over a little bit on the course. It sounded a touch better. So the one shot that I hit well down 10, from there I was about 100 yards left in and I went with wedge. And my wedge, from my data, I was hitting 136 yards. So I had to hit kind of a 3/4 shot. I played it really nice. I actually pitched it pin high and it rolled past by about 3 or 4 feet, but controlled the flight wonderfully well. And for a shot that I was worried about the spin numbers, I didn't worry about the shot when I was hitting into the green. It felt responsive. It felt like it was going to stop quick enough, and it kind of did. So I was happy with that. I then hit some shots down on 11, and I hit a couple of 4-irons that fizzed straight down there. Again, great shots down 11 with the 4-iron. I then actually hit some shots from about 180 yards out with the 7-iron, and kind of again seeing how they reacted into the green. We can see from the clips, they reacted great. And the greens were a little bit receptive, but the ball just came in from such a height. And the big thing is I struck them well. And when you strike a club well, it's going to grip, it's going to react. And both those shots into 11 reacted really nicely. I then took the wedge out onto number 12 as well. Unfortunately, just misgauged the distance a little bit here on 12. I thought the pin was a bit more at the front, but it was at the back. But you can still see the flights that I hit, the shots I hit into the green there, all stopped. And actually, some of them spun back quite a bit. So on-course testing with the Rogue Pro, it was like, brilliant, thumbs up. Again, I wasn't massively obsessed with the feel. I wasn't completely in love with the sound, but the sound was better out on the golf course when I was hitting some real shots. I felt like the club looks really good behind the ball. I think it sits fantastic. I was getting some good flights. I felt confident hitting the shots. So again, kind of ticking all the boxes. And some of my fears of low spin when I was in quad testing in here were kind of banished when I was on the golf course because I didn't see that much of a low spin characteristic from some of the shots. I felt like the 4-irons just came out a little bit low now and again, but that's pretty much it. The rest of the shots were pretty good, and I was very happy with the performance. Let's get on some of your questions, and then we'll fire through a conclusion at the end. Okay, so your questions, and this is an interesting one because of the amount of clubs that Callaway have out, and they have a lot of irons out at the moment. One big question a lot of people are asking is, who's this club aimed at? Because obviously you've got the X Forged, and you've got the XR still circulating, the Epics are out there, you've got the different sets of Rogue. Who actually uses a club like this? And it's a really interesting question because, if I'm honest, I'm not sure. When I look at the massive category of irons that they've got out, who fits into this criteria as a specialist club? If I was just looking at this club on its own, I would say a kind of maybe 14 to 15 handicapper wanting to smash into single figures, and even the single figure handicapper that's wanting to get a bit lower. I see no objective with that golfer using this club at all. I mean, Henrik Stenson uses a club that has a similar design to this from way back in the day. So if a golfer like that can still use a design like this, there's no reason why some really good golfers can use it as well. The only fear I see as the better golfer starts to progress with this club is if the lofts get a bit strong and from what we see the gapping gets a little bit too big, that becomes an issue for the better player. And that's where I see it having this kind of loose placement within the middle section of the handicap range down to single figures. But I do believe some single figures will struggle to really play with these golf clubs to get down even lower. And they might then go into like an X Forged or something like that. So that's kind of who I see them aimed at. I don't see them being ultimate forgiveness. I see these being more Rogue standard for ultimate forgiveness. And then you've got your Rogue X, which I've still not tested yet, which is your maximum distance, which is stupid loft. So I can't wait to test them to see how they even play out on the golf course. I'm not sure how they do so. Let's go on to a conclusion of the Rogue Pro irons. So my conclusion of the Rogue Pro irons, and these are all my thoughts, my conclusion, my testing that I've carried out for the last couple of weeks with the Rogue Pro. And would they go in my bag? Probably not. You know, they're not a bad set. They're not a bad looking golf club. I just think there's better Callaway irons out there, and better irons in the marketplace out there, truth be told. It looks okay. It's not amazing. It's not perfect. Performance is good. I wouldn't say above, amazing. I wouldn't say it's phenomenal, but these are just my words. These are just my opinions on it. If you want to test them yourself, feel free to. But I would also put these against some other sets, some maybe Titleist sets, some Mizuno sets, some different sets around the marketplace, and see how they perform compared to them, because that's where you've got to see those differences between the clubs. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. Comment below, what do you think of the Rogue Pro irons? Do you like the look? And do you think they're premium enough for the price point that you're paying for? Because that's a really interesting topic. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, click the big red button. Like the video if you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time, and that was my review of the Callaway Rogue Pro irons. Rogue Pro irons. The ones.